The mistake I made early on, I think, was not understanding the power of
Mm,
credits. I maxed out up to three credit cards. The total
mm,
was over $40,000.
mm.
Welcome to My Financial Misstep Series on Cash Talk for Immigrants. So today our guest is a friend and a colleague, I will say in the financial world, Ima Woy. So Ima, you're welcome to the program. And if you share with us, who is Ima Woy?
Well, Ima Woy is a Nigerian immigrant. And I came to the United States 18 years ago. I came to San Antonio, where I still live. I have two grown children, and I have worked so many different professions, businesses, and I finally decided to settle in financial services because I feel like I have so much to contribute to individuals, families, businesses in better ways to handle financial challenges.
Again, you're welcome, Miss Ima Woy. You can see that beautiful smile with that gap teeth that is showing for us here. So if I may cut straight to the chase, what would you say, Ima, was your biggest financial challenge when you first came to the US, and how did you overcome it?
I would say when I first came, the biggest financial challenge was being 100 dependent on my husband for cash for everything. And so we'll go to the grocery store and it will be like, "Ah, how much is that? That wasn't what I was spending before you came home because he was already here and settled. And so I felt very uncomfortable having to ask for permission for everything. And so I started a small business with Mary Kay as an independent beauty consultant. And that really helped a lot because I was now generating some income. So I think having some cash is a real challenge, at least for most families. And so having one income and now being able to have a second income, I think that was a big way that I really was able to fix that challenge of that pressure of only one income and not having anything that I could say, okay, if I need to buy this, I don't need to ask for support or permission.
So, as you started your journey as a new immigrant here, can you share with us a financial mistake that you made earlier on, and what did you learn from it?
Ah, the mistake I made early on, I think, was not understanding the power of credits. And so I'll call it using credit cards to assist somebody else. Let me just tell you the story because that way the audience can really understand how big of a mistake it was and how certain mistakes can really affect your finances and your whole future. So when I first came, I already had a business in Nigeria. People already knew me because I had worked in banking for about 15 years. And so coming here and also having a business, I really had that feeling of, business needs capital. So I had a friend who visited from Nigeria and they were trying to get a contract in the US to supply some things to Nigeria. And the way they described this project was really big project. And so I made a mistake of using credit card to help this person with the expenses of running or trying to get this business going. My people, it was really bad.
Mm,
I maxed out up to three credit cards. The total
mm.
was over $40,000.
Wow,
Wow.
that's
And
some
lo
tidy
and
sum.
behold, lo and behold, this person never paid back. I mean, once in a while, they will give me, 2,000 here, 500 here, but the bulk remained untouched. And so
Wow.
now I found myself working overtime, trying to pay off this interest, pay off this card. The balance wasn't even dropping at all. at a point, the
Yeah,
balance was
when you
even
consider that interest card debts are very high, usually over 20%, most of them. Mm,
exactly. So that was a big mistake I made. And I can tell you that I'm still trying to come out of it because I did not react on time. I just had that belief that, oh, okay, they will pay back. The business is still trying to work out. When I really started understanding that this money wasn't coming was when this person started telling me, Ima, you who having money is even a waste, safe. I was
oh,
like,
wow. Are you kidding me?
So,
you know,
if I may ask, how did you go from one credit card, getting a second credit card, getting a third credit card to still keep helping this person? How did you arrive at that? Like after the first one, I'm sure you maxed it out. Then what made you still go for the second and for the third?
you know, I don't know. They say people who get scammed or deceived will deceive themselves first. And so sometimes we tell ourselves this story that we're good people, we're kind people, we're helpful people. But, goodness, kindness, helpfulness, charity begins at home. One has
Mm-hmm.
to help oneself before you help
Yes.
others. That's a
Mm-hmm.
principle that I never really got because I believe in self-sacrifice. I believe in service. I believe you lift yourself by lifting others. And so it had to do with mindset. I did not really understand that, there's a limit to how much you can help another human being, and that limit ends within one's strength. So not only was I held to I couldn't, I wasn't thinking of, okay, this is how much my strength can carry. I now want to go borrow, which is now going beyond my strength.
Mm.
And so I think it has to do with mindset. And that's why I always talk with my family, my clients about where is that thought coming from? Where is that language coming from? What made you think that that was a good idea? And so I think that's basically it. Like you said, what made me go from the first to the second to the third was because I had that belief that, oh, you already started now, help. So at least let's finish the project. If you start something, finish it. Now, my belief is sunk cost. If you start something and you see that it's not working, stop. You cannot get what you've lost by throwing more after it. So that took
Mm.
me a while to figure out, if the soup is rotten, throw it away. Don't try and put onions in it or put more meat in it.
I like that. That's a good one. Don't try and put more onions in it. It's already rotten. Okay. Okay. So considering the fact that your credit as a result of this thing had really been damaged severely, so what strategies did you now use to rebuild that credit? And why would you say those strategies you used are important or helpful? How are they helpful to others?
Okay, like first, the strategy. The first thing I tried to do was to make bigger payments towards wiping out this debt when I saw that the money wasn't going to be coming. But I found that the more I was putting in, it was not even having a dent. The balance just seemed to stand there. If I put in $2,000 extra, I would just look at it and see that, oh, okay, nothing, it was hardly moving. So the next thing I did was just stop making any payments because one of the things I understood was America has the option of bankruptcy. And I was like, if it comes to that, maybe I'll take that route. But fortunately, the um, credit card companies also have an option where before they write off a debt, they will call you and ask you, okay, you're owing us 10,000. Can you pay us 3,000 and we'll forgive the balance? And so, as painful as it was, and as difficult as it was to have those conversations, because before it gets to that point, oh my God, they'll blow up your phone morning, noon, and night. They'll be calling. And even when you call and explain that, look, I'm trying my best, they talk to you in a way that makes you feel so tiny. And one can't really blame them because this is a business. You've signed an agreement, you've promised to make these payments at a certain date of the month, and now you're defaulting. And so it was really bad to the point where I had to sell my home. That was just the solution I had to apply because I looked at it. I'm like, okay, this has been going on for more than 7, 8 years of owing this huge amount. And I was like, if I bought a house that I was paying off, I would say, okay, at the end of the day, I'll have something. But the interest rate on this thing was just ridiculous. So even when they said that, okay, they will no longer collect interest, the monthly payments, I was able to negotiate. Like some months, it's okay, you pay $2,000 a month. I looked at my bills and then additional 2,000. I was like, this is just too much. Let me just take the settlement. So like one of the banks was able to say, okay, you're owing us 46,000 at that point. And if you can pay 13,000, we'll forgive the balance. And so that's why I choose that route of, okay, let me just sell this place and just start afresh. My friend called it a nuclear option. And so having gone through that
Indeed.
experience, I am now so, so careful and cautious. If anybody asks me to lend them money, it's almost like starting a quarrel now.
Of course.
So how did that pan out at the end of the day with this person whom you gave all this money to assist? How is that relationship? Because people need to know when you do those things, how it ends, so that it will help people to be very careful and know that at the end of the day, you might be thinking you are helping, but you might actually be shooting yourself in the foot.
Of course, it's really true. I mean, for those of us who come from a Christian background, there's a quote that says that the borrower is the slave of the lender. And at the end of the day, to avoid that enslavement, we'll find that the borrower tends to tends to avoid the lender.
Mhm.
And so I started seeing that that relationship was no longer the same. This was a very good childhood friend, and that's what gave me that confidence because I felt like this is somebody I know from childhood. So if I can help them, it's fine. We're the same. But no, it turned out that we're not the same because this person was doing investments. They were living lavish in Nigeria, but I was here struggling with my children, and it's really made things so bad. The person's reply at one point, I don't know if I already mentioned that earlier, was, "In my money is a waste in your hands." It became clear that this person
Wow.
had no intention of returning the money. And so that friendship was destroyed. It's no longer existing, and it's really taught me a huge lesson. I mean, I could share other stories also because it cuts both ways. Somebody who feels comfortable lending also feels comfortable borrowing. So I've shared two sides of the story, the effect of me borrowing and also the effect of me lending. And
Lending.
so
Mhm.
financial mistakes, financial discipline has to be across the board. The more we learn to save, we will start valuing our savings. And if you value savings, then you're not going to be borrowing because you won't be borrowing if you have savings. And if you value savings, so it's like a line, it's like a continuum that I've found. The more you go towards saving and investing, the further away you'll be from borrowing and indebtedness. And so it really affects
Mm.
relationships in really, really deep ways. It even affected my relationship with myself.
I can imagine. I can imagine. This is instructive to our people to know that, like she has rightly pointed out, the borrower begins to avoid you, and before you know it, there's a rupture in the relationship. So the assistance you thought you were given ends up shooting you, ends up biting you, hurting you, and even destroying the relationship. A lot of us have gone through experiences like this, but this one is so painful to hear because she had to borrow, and not just to borrow with where it was 5% or 3%, but over 20% on credit cards. If you know anything about credit cards in this country, the credit card debts are one of the things that kill people in this country because the interest is so high.
And that's
And
what it
so,
has done, because she has ended up selling her home now to be able to take care of that, while the person is living his life back in Nigeria and doesn't know anything about it. So you have to start afresh here now. So that's the penalty you pay. That's the cost. Yes. Don't forget, if you have gained value so far from this video, please subscribe, hit the subscribe and notification button so that you do not miss any of our videos. And subscribing also helps our channel to grow and reach more people.
okay, so how do you balance supporting family back home while managing your life here with all these things that has happened to you here? So how do you, because I know that a lot of us from immigrants here, we have these responsibilities back home also. I don't know if you do, and if you do, probably the audience may want to know how you balance, meeting those obligations back home and also being able to manage yourself with all these problems that you run into here.
For me, I would say I decided not to make it a problem because the truth of the matter is the demands will always come, they will always be there. But having gone through this experience, and my family, everyone is pretty much self-sufficient. Whatever I will be
Okay.
contributing will be extra, and I decided to just cut that off. If it's a little thing, maybe my mom needs something, then, but most of the time I just like, I'm sorry, no.
Okay, so in other words, you took a principled stand to face head on the challenges you had here, and your folks, fortunately, were in a position they could help themselves. So you decided to face these challenges and not play the godfather there back home again. Because this is another thing that our people need to learn, that you have problems here. We've run into people that have big problems here and challenges are here, and they still want to appear to be the provider back home, so compounding their issues. So for us immigrants, this is something to learn from what she said. She had to focus on doing what she needed to focus on here.
Exactly. And then in view of everything that you have faced, the challenges here and the strategies you have used, what advice would you give to new immigrants about saving money and investing for the future?
I think the first thing, if I can be so bold as to give an advice, is know your limits. Because you might be trying to save somebody's life and end up losing your own life. And if it's a worthy sacrifice, maybe for your child or for your parents, yes, the world will applaud you and say, ah, she died for her mom or her dad, or she ran into debt trying to save her family. But when it's for a neutral outside party, a friend, community, it just looks ridiculous and
I'm
at the
sorry
end
to
of the
interrupt
day,
you, Miss Ima, but
yes.
remember when you're on board a flight and the flight attendants are, what do they say? They say even if you have a child there and there's any turbulence and that gas mask drops, what do they usually
Put on
say?
your own mask first.
Put on your own first before you even try to put on that your child. So
Yes,
that is still the overarching principle that
yes.
most of us should take into consideration. Yes,
Now
go ahead.
that's it. You said it very well. So that's the point of the whole advice that I was going to give. Look after yourself. Because money is, I've begun to understand is if it's not bulky enough, you can't really make an impact. If you send somebody $1, maybe it might buy something little, maybe a cup of coffee if you go to maybe McDonald's. But you give somebody $10,000, maybe it can change something for them. So gather your $1, gather the money till it's sufficient to where you can make an impact. Don't scatter your resources thinking you're helping. It just hurting you and sometimes hurting the person because the person gets used to those trickles that you're sending and they don't even make an effort to stand on their own feet.
So are
So
there ways or suggestions, because it's really about saving and investing? Are there ways, advice you can give about, okay, they've saved this money, how about investing it? Like any advice on that?
For me, this one took me a long time to understand and figure out. The first thing is we talk of put on your mask first, protect yourself first, insurance. The thing with money is as long as you're strong, you're agile, you're working, you're generating income. The day you fall sick, the day you grow old, the day you can no longer leave your house and go to work, what do you have? And most people starting out life, I mean, when I came here, I had nothing. So the first foundation is get enough insurance to replace your income if you cannot work. Fortunately, insurance nowadays is not only the type where it's only useful when you die. So get that education on that simple foundational basic. Even if it's just 50,000, 100,000 that, oh, if I cannot go to work, oh, at least I can get this money to take care of myself. Get that first. Then now think of, okay, old age, enjoyment, providing for children's education, all those other things come with your own personal preference. People go into real estate, people invest in the stock market, people invest in businesses. All those are very solid ways because the whole thing with investment is acquiring assets that will be producing income if you are not there. They call it the Swiss technique, sales while you sleep soundly. Have
mhm.
something that can produce money if you are not there. So whatever vehicle you choose, and there's so many vehicles, you have to just go with what you prefer. The main thing is get the basis of a foundational thing of insurance, and then from there, acquire assets.
Well, that's a pretty good advice that we've gotten there on what you should do because, like she said, insurance, foundational, savings, then invest. Look for diversify your income. That's part of what this channel is all about to help immigrants find their feet on a solid ground when you come here. Because when we first come, we are all on slippery ground. In my language, we say you are like a chicken that is on one foot until you survey the area and know the place before the second foot will come down. So those are some of the tips that will be helpful in doing so. So, Miss Ima, coming from Nigeria, there are definitely certain differences, cultural differences in the way money is handled in financial practices between the US and Nigeria. So how did you adapt to the financial practices when you came to the US from Nigeria? The cultural aspect of it.
I think culture is a really big thing. I mean, I always face this challenge of something as simple as going out to eat, and I feel like, let me bring out my wallet to pay for everybody.
Yeah,
Even when I don't
that's
have,
the first shock every immigrant gets, I guess.
even when I don't have, and they're like, no, 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 I'll take care of you take care of yours. Everybody pay their own. And I feel like it's so rude, like, aren't we friends anymore? Why, but it gives people dignity. It allows people to cut their coat according to their pocket. If somebody wants to eat the most expensive meal, they don't have to feel constrained by the budget of somebody else. And if somebody can only afford a cup of tea, they order their tea and we can still have an outing and be friends. So that was a big one for me. I still struggle with.
That's actually a real major one because I remember our very first experience where somebody invited us out and we thought, okay, he invited us, so he was going to take care of the bill. And only for us to get, I think it was a cruise lunch.
It was a boat.
It was a boat lunch, something like that,
Yeah, like
on a
lunch
boat,
on a
on a
boat.
boat. So we get to the boat place to make payments. He invited us. And so to make payments, and then he paid for himself, his wife, and his mother-in-law or somebody. And then he stepped aside and said, okay, Vidal, you can go make your payment. And I looked at my wife looked at me, we were like, and this was like $100 each. And we were like, did we tell him we had this kind of money? But fortunately, I had just thrown in some money into my pocket, and then we were able to pay it. But that was a rude shock that told us that, the cultural practices are different. Everybody here, you're on your own. Even when they invite you, because we believe that once we invite you to something, we will pay for it because we invited you. So that's a huge cultural difference for immigrants here.
Yes. How do you think new immigrants or other immigrants here can take advantage of channels like ours, Cash Talk, for immigrants and other similar channels?
It's really interesting because actually before I came on, I was listening to some other channels. This one was based on an Indian, talking about the Indian community. I think that was a minority mindset. And then there were so many different channels like this. But you provide a very unique perspective because general advice on how to get established and specific advice on handling finances are completely different things. And so you all stepping up to fill that space and fill that need is really, really important because money answers all things. And so people come in here thinking they're about to achieve the American dream, and suddenly you don't have time for anything. Families, even within the same house, are distant because everybody's working, working, working. And so, what value you provide is helping people to cut out the time, reduce the time it would take them to achieve financial stability. Because let's say I had the openness to listen and the information that you're providing, I could have maybe been completely retired by now, but I'm still finding myself at that beginning stage of trying to find my feet, trying to stabilize and build my retirement all over again. And so thank you so much for what you both are doing. And I pray that you all find more strength and more audience to really spread this information and impact our community because people really, really are struggling and people need this information. Thank you.
We learn from stories of people that we meet, people that we listen to, just as you have learned from her story. And to learn and hear more stories from other immigrants, click on this video and watch more so that you will learn from stories, mistakes that others have made for you to avoid.